What the church Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is one step closer to the complete demise of Scientology. Hang back, folks.
Who's back? We're back.
Who's back?
What?
For anyone new to the goings on, you can find Serge Del Mar on YouTube at Serge Del Mar. You can find Nora on YouTube at Oh No Nora. Be sure to check them out there. Guys, we're here to talk about reincarnated Scientologists. I mean, I got to tell you. So I was having a chat with Tommy Scovel, and someone in the live chat was like, I forget what prompted the comment, but it was almost like, I think we were talking about the fact that Scientologists hope that if they get enough Scientology auditing, that they'll be able to skip the between lives implant station run by the evil alien psychiatrist, where they wipe your memory and give you amnesia of your past lives, and you'll pick up a new body and you'll grow up with full total recall of your previous lives. And someone's like, but that's never occurred before, right? And I'm like, of course it's never occurred before. And then someone was like, but wait a second, oh no, Nora attested to being a past life clear. And it never had occurred to me to think of Scientologists who had attested to past life clear. It had never dawned on me to think of that as an example of Scientology actually saying, yes, this person reincarnated from their past life as a Scientologist, and they remember it. For some reason, I'd never thought of it that way. And I was like, and because I never attested to past life clear in Scientology, I'd never been subjected to that process. I never trained on the auditing procedure on how to attest someone to clear, the Clear Certainty Rundown auditor course. So Serge was, one of the things he was trained on was supervising the course that trained auditors on that procedure. Serge himself, I thought he had attested to past life clear, but he said he had not. Nora, you attested to past life clear. I'm trying to wonder if, before we embark on this actual conversation, if there's any more introduction we need to do let's just assume no one's watched any of our videos before. Is there any other explanation we need to give for what we're about to talk about? Any more preamble?
Serge, what
you
do you
go
think?
first.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think, all three of us have the one thing in common is that we all grew up as, born in babies, so there's always the expectation, I think, from Scientology parents, especially from parents in our generation, that we were special, that we had chosen them for a purpose, so there was always that kind of like weight on our shoulders. So they were always like waiting. I mean, at least my parents were, especially my dad, waiting to find out like what we knew, like what secrets we were going to unfold to them. That was my dad's big thing, like, because my dad was an auditor. He was a trained auditor. My mom, at the time when I was a youth, was not a trained auditor. She became a trained auditor later. But when I was a baby growing up, she had just been, like in the GO doing, spy shit, ruining people's lives. Totally different job, different story. But she had attested to clear through a very long, arduous route. My dad was also clear. So, yeah. It's but like at that time period, like I was born in 1976, clear was still like the mamba jamba. I mean, OT levels were like space opera, was like a far out. And also you had to be super rich, because let's face it, in the 70s, 80s, you were getting to OT one of two ways. You were either joining the Sea Org to be part of, Ron's org to like help out and do all these things, and then you were gifted that was the promise. That's what we were all told. You're going to get gifted the OT levels, or you were gonna pay money because you were rich. And of course that was going to happen because you were a Scientologist, and you were going to expand your dynamics and all of that stuff.
Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about here today is basically this idea in Scientology that with enough Scientology auditing, you are going to be able to come back lifetime after lifetime and remember everything that happened in your past lives. And what's interesting is that in Scientology, there used to be this thing. In fact, it was very common where people would be allowed to attest to having achieved the state of clear in their previous life. And that technically is as close as it gets to a Scientologist basically coming back and saying, yeah, I reincarnated and I have full memory of it. So Nora, I wanted to ask you for as many details as you can remember for what you were actually asked to remember or required to remember before they would be like, yes, young one, you have been blessed as a last lifetime clear. Do you remember the procedure, what was required of you?
Yes. I mean, well, when I went through the procedure, I was 13, 14. So I was a teen, very full of myself, very confident. And it started out as like a very kind of sassy origination at the examiner after a objective session, because I was nowhere on the bridge like in Scientology. I was doing the student hat with my mom. We were twinning. We were partnered together, me and my mom, on student hat at the San Francisco org. And a student auditor needed somebody to audit on the objectives. And they were like, "Hey, you haven't had objectives." And I was like, "That sounds like fun. It's free. Sweet. I'll do that." So this guy is giving me the objective processes, touch things and do all these things. And I thought, this is interesting stuff. And at the time, it was the first time in Scientology processes that I had experienced what everybody gets so excited about in Scientology: going exterior from your body, being disembodied from your body. And I remember describing the exterior process like was floating in the room. And this guy was I was 14, so he was old to me at the time. He was like in his late 20s, and he was like, had like a little bald patch. So I remember like being able to see like his bald patch and like telling him about it. And then he got like embarrassed and ended the session. And but also because I was exterior during like, objectives, he can't handle that anyway, it's a whole technical thing. So then the very next session, we had another really good session. And then I was like thumbing through some basic books, all those like old janky basic books when they were still in the green books with the paper covers, and before they got redone for like the 17th time or whatever. And I opened up one of the books, and I just remember like in the back page, I was looking through the things and it just said, "You are clear." And I was like, yeah, totally. And I just kept flipping and I was like, what? And then I went back to try and find that page, and it like wasn't there. And I was like, I was like, maybe it's a different book. And I'm looking through all these books. And then I realized, oh, it was just, I'm clear. And so I ran like around the thing telling people, and they were like, you got to go to the examiner. So then I just started like word vomiting all these things about being clear to the examiner. And they had a freak out because the San Francisco org was like, it's a class 5 org. And for those of you guys, like, there's different classifications of orgs, but they
We don't have to
make
get into
it
all
clear.
that. We just want, let's get into the CCRD procedure.
So they said, we can't help you here, because what I was talking about was, obviously I'm 14, but I'm telling them about things that happened before 1976. Right. And so, because I'd only received this processing, there's no way I could have gone clear right now. So they were like, you have to go to AOLA right now, down to Los Angeles. So I went to Los Angeles, and they immediately like put me in a auditing room with Phil Christodoulou. And they were like, start like right away. They just want to know like time, place, form, and event. It's almost like an ethics interview, but like a happy one. Like, they want to know your name, and they want to know where you got auditing at, and they want to know like, all these things. And you're trying to like remember all this stuff of like, what happened in your past life, who were you, where did it happen, and it's like a locational, but for your past life kind of a thing, to try and like pinpoint exactly where you were, when it was, to
She's talking
recreate.
about doing a date locate. They would do a date and locate procedure, and that's how they would determine supposedly when you made the decision to have this reactive mind. So
Right.
that was really the pitch.
But they were trying to find out who I was so they could possibly pull the folder to verify what I was telling them. Because when you're a last lifetime clear, see, when you're doing the CCRD in general, exactly what Serge is talking about, they date locate it to be like, when did you decide to create your own reactive mind? And then all the things go, and you're like fireworks and everything's beautiful. But when you're a last lifetime clear, it's like, if you were a kid walking into Flag and you're like, my name was Tom Bradshaw and I have $85,000 on account I want to use, you have to like verify some info, right? So that you can like continue moving up the bridge. It's the same way when you're a last lifetime clear. Like they want to know who you were
Well,
and
yeah,
like,
verify,
were you
but
a
not
good
really
person or
verify,
a
because
bad person?
honestly, I never heard of a single person
No,
whoever said, "Oh, my last lifetime was this," and then the folder was found, and then they
they
found the
never
money
found
that
my
they had on
folder.
account. So much of this whole like past life stuff was, a lot of the disassociation that comes from, revering this like very fake status that everybody was, like you said, Nora, so obsessed and so like, it's gonna be so great, and wait till you're clear, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's all this like, but it's all just fluff. Like
And it all happened in my first PC folder, which then got lost. And then they tried to prove I wasn't clear on the RPF because I was gay, right? So you can't be cleared and be gay. So they had me do another CCRD on the RPF. I had to do two.
So hold on. hold on. What I wanted to dig in a little bit was helping people understand, or even help myself understand,
Yeah.
that in one respect, the clear certainty rundown procedure, when being done on someone who is being considered to have achieved clear in a previous life, in some respects, the auditing procedure is trying to get a lot of nitty-gritty details on the time, place, form, and event, precisely who you were, how this happened, where it happened, when it happened. But on the other hand, they're not actually trying to verify it. What I mean is, they might ask you for a name. Do you remember if you were asked to come up with a name?
Oh, yeah.
Did you come up with a name?
Oh, I did. I came up with 2 different names on each CCRD. Oh, there's my balloons. Sorry, I have to remember I'm on my Mac, so it'll do things.
So wait, you came up with 2 different,
Because I had 2 different CCRDs. The first one when I was 14. Yeah, and then the second one.
Okay, so you were asked to come up with a name, but it's not like they're going to take that name, go look for the folders to determine whether you're telling the truth or not.
They told me they were looking for the folders. Whether they actually looked, I mean, they made me wait a really long time while they were trying to locate these folders. So I don't know if they're actually looking for the folders, because at the time that I attested a lifetime to clear, there was only one other kid who had attested. So there was a lot of other security checks at that time, because this was 1989 when I attested the last lifetime clear, 1990-ish. So it was very like, they were like, oh shit. Because when I attested to clear, you have to understand there was like 3 people being announced for clear. Okay. Or like me and one other guy being announced for clear. And it was at AO and everyone's clapping. And I was standing next to this guy who was like 6'4", and everyone's looking at him as if he's the person being announced. And then I started talking and people passed out because there was no kids attesting to clear. And a last lifetime clear was like, I may as well have been Jesus in terms of like Scientology, because like what happened to me
But it's
after
weird.
that
Like when we were at Flag, it seemed like almost everyone our age had attested to last lifetime clear.
I don't remember.
Yes and no. Yes
I
and
don't
no.
remember
I mean, there
knowing that
were
many others.
Eric Martinez, Kylie Rose Pierce. Who else was on the briefing course? Iride Pallavicini. I don't know. Was Hector Cruzado one of those guys? Like Ana Luisa Rodriguez.
Oh,
but
they
let me
never
ask you,
told me
Serge.
that.
Because you were someone who would train auditors on how to deliver this procedure. Was there anything in the delivery materials that was like, yes, you must go find the folders and verify if this is true or not?
No.
So they were just like making me
No, I
wait.
mean,
Like,
again, it's like we go back to the ridiculous pitch of the course, right? Because as much as like all this officialness was done, which is it was all this glorification of technology and application and read this bulletin and read everything, but nothing really had a rhyme or reason, like there wasn't even anything in what the material stated that made any shred of sense.
But the other thing is that it's against the rules of auditing to tell someone that what they're saying is not true. So I'm a little confused as to the purpose of this date locate procedure on the Clear Certainty Rundown if you're not going to use that information to verify if
First, to
what
do a
they're
two-way
saying is
comm.
correct.
But see, here's the thing. First, you have to do a two-way comm, which was
Right.
all these like questions about what it could have been or where you thought you had it. And then there was supposed to be a needle reaction that happened in the emitter that then really did show like a floating TA, then it did show that you were that. And then if you did have all of those things manifesting here, then you would go to the date locate and then they would find out exactly when it was. And supposedly when you really found the date, you really, were able to attest. But so it was like, it was these things that had to manifest on the emitter, like the floating TA or, or persistent FN or like different manifestations that they would check. And if you had those, then you would then be able to go to the next step and then you would attest basically.
Right.
But
I
it's
mean,
all
like,
done. Like that's what the rundown consists of. It's literally first a two-way comm. When did you think you went clear? How did you feel? Tell me feelings you had regarding this. Tell me sensations you had regarding this. And then it get person to blah, blah, blah. And then if the needle was floating and floating, then okay, now let's date and locate.
yeah.
So it was that's how it actually worked, like technically, if you really like just look at it for what it was.
And I think I
So
skipped all that because, like, when I gave my origination, my TA was doing the floating McFloaterson, and then I went to AO, and it was just like I was beaming and I was doing all the things, and they were just like, "What?" And it was like they were just like it was a light show. So,
Yeah.
I said whatever I said at the time, and they loved it.
see, so because I never received or delivered or trained on the Clear Certainty Rundown procedure, I did know just somehow through osmosis that it was basically a date and locate procedure. What never occurred to me is how much emphasis was put on trying to get the person to spit out the name of who they had been. Because you can do a date locate procedure without giving a name. A name is almost
Right.
irrelevant to the procedure. So, Serge, how
but
important was it to get the name?
Well, that's because it was from that past life thing. But what I was telling you, Aaron, is, the name. See, they used to allow people to attest to this past life clear, but then they figured out, oh, people are paying for all the grades.
Right.
Past life clear isn't a thing anymore. What Nora's talking about was the 89s when everything was more hoo ha ha ha. Right? It's like
The
everything
89s.
changed in 1993 once the
Right.
IRS literally gave them okay to go back wild and live out their darkest fantasies. Then all of a sudden, everything started to tighten up. Everything started to be like, oh, the money. Oh, you didn't pay. Oh, then you didn't cognite. Oh, did you think you were tested clear? So many people were being sent back. Like at the beginning, everybody was past life clear, and then everybody was told, you're not
Or
going.
natural clear. Remember all the natural clears that they used to have? That was the other thing. People would just
Because
walk
again,
in
it
and be
was
like,
all
I
self-proclaimed.
never
Like you're
created
like,
my
I'm
own reactive
clear.
mind. That was a natural
All
clear.
it took was for Nora to regurgitate she was clear, and then all of a sudden they really were checking that. I mean, it had nothing to do with reality. It was a delusion.
No, because all we had to say, I mean, like, let's face it,
Here.
all of us born-ins, let's see, what's the reasoning for David Miscavige? Because exactly what Serge just said, but also like, because then also we have to realize, let's say we all did have perfect recall of a clear, which I do have like an idyllic memory for like movie quotes and shit like that. That's totally, I could go on Jeopardy and win that shit, but that's not like a totally useful skill. But let's say we all did have perfect recall about like our relationship with Elron back in our former life, because we could have all worked with Elron in the 50s, okay, in our former life. and we come back and we pick a new body and we're here and we're like, hey, we're coming back to work, we're joining the Sea Org, and we're like, oh, by the way, I was so-and-so and I worked with Elron and you're a fucking fraud and I know all the deets, get the fuck out of here. Like, of course he's gonna say no to that, because it's somebody, he might meet somebody who really knows the real him or the real shit, or might be able to spill the beans. But
So the name was never
you know,
found, Darren, in a nutshell. The names were never found. Nothing was matched because everything is just a pathetic sham. And all this stuff is like, I almost, you know, it's almost, I'm almost scared to talk about too much significance of it, because you realize that, you know, L. Ron Hubbard pulled all of this out of his literal ass. So in what world are we really like thinking of how much significance this had, when literally he just literally pulled it out of his ass one day, said reactive mind is something that is literally not been researched, literally not been proved. It was all just a way to, you know, to get us all clogged up in this fake game that everybody was so obsessed over playing. And that's how we got groomed as kids. And I mean, that's what's so dangerous about this, just because what Nora was saying is like the prodigy aspect of adulticizing kids. That to me is what's so disgusting. You know, it's like the fact that you were being paraded around as this big promotional thing, because that's how they were using to get more people to pay, right? Because it's like, oh, Friday night, come to see the clear, you guys. We just had a young one come up, and then everybody goes, and then everybody gets excited, and then everybody donates more money to really go up. And oh my God, look, you just made our stats go up. And it's like, it's all such a grift, and it's also disgusting. And, you know, the fact that they were using you as that, Nora, I mean, that's nauseating.
Well, my dad's first question to me when I tested it clear was like, what else did you remember? And I was like, what? And he was like trying to pull strings to find out if I recalled anything beyond clear. Like, and he was asking me pointed questions, because at the time my dad was OT3. So he wanted me to, and he asked me, he was like, what about, like, remember when we went and saw like Close Encounters of the Third Kind? And I was like, yeah, of course, I love that movie. I remember that. It's like, did anything like that come to your mind? Like, he's trying to get me to recall aliens, guys. Like, he was fully trying to get me to say like Xenu and like aliens and shit. And I was like, what? Like,
so he was trying to feed you
Serge,
the OT3.
oh, 100%. My dad was like, he was trying to get me there so that then I could give him like OT5 for free, because like that was my dad's thing. Like, how could he get to that for like not paying?
Serge, what do you think is the reason why in 2004-ish, 2003, 4-ish, Miscavige basically said anyone who'd ever attested to having achieved clear in a past life, it has to be told that they're not really clear, and that no one's really allowed to do that anymore?
Well, it all has to do with money, right? And they would all, I mean, think about it. Every Thursday, they have to come up with a battle plan on how they're going to make money. And as much as everybody says, oh, yeah, Scientology wants to clear the whole entire world, you guys, it couldn't be more ridiculous, because they're out there single-handed selecting who qualifies for this, you know, Ponzi scheme, basically. So the more they realized that when they were being teedy-weedy, because like that's how it's kind of started to feel, right? Like if you said, oh, I'm a past life clear, then they were like, oh, no, that's a teedy-weedy case. So get them to do all the objectives. They need to do all the grades. And it was always like, how we're going to now reg everyone to start doing the grades, right? So it's always, it was always contingent, like OT7s had to go back and do the objectives and do the PRF. And it's always this redo because, you know, and all they have to do is tell everyone that completed a state that they all have to redo it. And then all of a sudden they're making millions of dollars on that change. And it's always, you have to pay for it. It's never our fault that we delivered the technology wrong. And again, there is no technology to deliver. That's the hoo-ha that they try to use. We really have an e-meter. We really are checking stuff, but it's all just a pathetic, you know, role play that they're doing. And they're like, you know, charging a ton of money. So, but it's all contingent with money, because nothing inside those hotels, every week they're checking like, how much money can we make this week, you guys? And Thursday to Thursday, we have to realize these people are out there searching for bags of cash to grift.
Yes, that's true. Okay, Red Queen asks, does having parents who've done the OT levels, does that make the pressure worse for the children? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think so. I mean, I think that, my parents were OT7s, and, again, it's a fake level, but everybody there takes it very serious. So
Oh yeah.
the people that are in that type of delusion of grandeur tend to become extremely psychotic, because they're walking around as if they're demigods, and they couldn't be more delusional, and they couldn't be more pathetic. And that level of cognitive dissonance, when you are going to put them near children who are going to be told they're adults, I mean, in what world is that going to be a good equation, to have an adult that thinks they're a demigod next to a child that's an adult?
Yeah. Were your parents OT, Aaron? Was your mom OT?
She became later.
Not when I was growing up. She did her OT levels when I was in the Sea Org later on.
Yeah.
And she
But your
finished
mom
through
was
OT
fanatical.
5.
Your mom was
Yeah.
so fanatical.
Yeah, my mom
Literally.
didn't go OT later, right? The same, like until I was in the Sea Org. And it, like, actually, as I was leaving the Sea Org, my mom started going OT. And then my dad was OT before he passed when I was 19. So yeah, my dad was OT when I was a kid. But yeah, I think it does. I agree with Serge, because when they're like at this level, there's like a certain pressure that comes on, as a Scientology kid, and Louis, bring in the tech in here as usual.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
what
mean,
he's saying
if
is
for
literally
somebody
getting
who's,
into the weeds
yeah,
of the
this
weeds of
is
the weeds.
super technical, guys, that Louis put in here. But this is if somebody was just doing like straight Scientology, and they're going step by step by step by step by step to achieve the state of clear. Yes, absolutely 100% to what Louis is saying. But when you're last lifetime and you're cute like me,
But
He's talking about the new rules, though.
Louis talking
Louis
about
Repetto's.
past
Yeah.
Well, Louis,
93, when you did it again, it was, Scientology was very teety weedy, and after 93, the IRS
Come on now.
started to become like, oh, we're really gonna apply the tech, you guys. We really have to be very, hardcore. I mean, everything became so hardcore after they got the IRS approval.
true.
And before, everybody was just kind of like going in the hotel, oh, test clear, oh, I'm this, I'm that. It was all like this like wimpy stuff. But then it became, oh my God, let's really be like what Louis said. Oh my God, they didn't say here the trillion years wasn't written. Let's send everyone back, and all these things that are stupid.
And what's crazy about that is that if you follow Dianetics, it doesn't talk about that. I mean, if you're a straight Dianeticist, if we're gonna like debate the tech, L. Ron Hubbard wasn't talking about no trillion years in Dianetics.
Are you talking about Book 1 Dianetics or New Era Dianetics?
I'm talking about Dianetics when he wrote it, Book 1.
But that procedure is literally the complete reverse of what they do now.
Right. Yeah, they're doing it's something totally else. It's just going clear has evolved so much from what he was doing in 1950 and what you do in like Book 1 auditing and just like literally talking somebody through their incidents, because clear is supposed to be a first dynamic this lifetime situation per Dianetics, right? And then you get into the New Era Dianetics, and now we're going clear on the whole track, and you're going clear through all your lifetimes and like all this stuff and blah blah blah. And so it like evolved over time to add in what Serge is talking about, the longer con of more auditing, right? At a higher price. Because Book 1 is like you just sit down with your friend, and you could do it anywhere. You could do it in a coffee shop. You could do it at home. You just get the book, you read it, you sit down with somebody, bingo bongo, you're auditing. But now with New Era Dynamics, hey, somebody's got to get trained. That costs money. Then that person's got to audit you in a professional setting. That costs money. So it's more money, more cheddar for the cult. So they had to like up the stakes there in terms of how they were delivering the same exact thing. By the way.
All right. Lewis says, I believe it was because of Tom Cruise. He was de-attested from clear in the early 2000s, and thus David Miscavige had to dissect it and find the big SP so Tom Cruise would see how he helped.
And yeah,
Interesting.
and why was he de-attested, kids? Let's backtrack.
No, let's
Just real
not. Again, it's ridiculous. It's all just
he was
ridiculous. Like,
de-attested because he almost left.
he attested was nothing to attest. There was nothing to do.
I
All
know
these
there's nothing to
procedures
attest, but
were
he
just
was punished,
ludicrous role
Serge, because
plays
he
where
almost
people were
left.
just. But Nora, hold on.
Yeah.
These procedures were ludicrous role plays. Like sometimes,
Yes.
you know, really getting into was it this, was it that? It's like it's playing into L. Ron Hubbard's sick game of these disgusting things that were normalized and that are not, that are very dangerous for people to be really considering, and we would know because of the after effects.
Yeah.
All right, check this out. Roasted tunts. It'll be all right on the night. Little Captain David Miscavige probably doesn't want the hassle of setting up a previous lives air miles type scheme, maybe called L-Run miles. Do you guys remember the passports that they were using for a little while that were supposed to be
Yes,
how you proved what you did in your previous life?
but that's what I'm
Yes.
saying. They
Yes.
got rid of that shit, Aaron, because again, it was more sort of playful and gainful for a while, but then it became like, no, like everybody has to do everything. You have to, yeah. The passports. Oh my God, I forgot about
They
those.
literally had this
passports
gimmick. They
was
had this gimmick
amazing.
where they were
Amazing.
handing out these Scientology passports.
And the
And
examiners had to like press them every time you attested
Yep.
something.
there
Yeah.
was like a
Stamp the
special
passport.
stamp as if it was a visa. And on one of the Scientology training films, I remember there was like a preview in the beginning of a young little kid walking into a Scientology organization and giving his name and
Mhm.
asking to retrieve his passport
Wants
Yep.
to get his
So that-
passport
Oh my God, I
updated.
from his
forgot about
previous life.
I forgot about that.
It's just one of those other little gimmicks that never worked out. No one's ever come back to claim their passport.
No, but you guys, okay, maybe because you guys weren't at Celebrity Center, I'm gonna debunk that. We had not one but two stories. I gotta stop doing these things. I'm just gonna do them all real quick. Ready? We had two stories that happened at CC where there was a young German kid who went into Flag. He brought his parents in. They were not Scientologists. This is the story that was told to us by Flag Regis. Okay.
But this story's total horseshit for the record.
Of course it is, but I'm just telling you, this is the story. They were trying to, this is during that 2000s era when things were like, this is right before, like 90, I want to say 98, 99. Anyway, this is like, golden age of tech was kind of waning, but we were like bringing it back up after, things were going real bad after our launch. We can talk about that another time. But this young German or Swiss kid had like told his parents he needs to go to Florida. They were like, okay, we don't understand why you need to go to Florida, but we'll take you there. You want to go to Disney World, whatever. And so he doesn't want to go to Disney World. No. He wants to go to the Fort Harrison. And they're like, what is this place? We never heard of it. He walks them into the Fort Harrison. They don't speak English, of course, right? But he somehow speaks English because of television or some shit. And so he walks up to the registrar and he says, hi, listen, my name is blah, blah, blah. But my name in my last life was, Joe Blow. And I have this much money on account and I died on this day. And these are all the things I did. Like just gives him the whole rundown, just like a miracle, right? Just has full total recall. And he's like, listen, my parents aren't Scientologists. They don't know what's going on, but I want to get them into Scientology. I want to use the money I have on account to get them up the bridge and also continue my processing. But I need, like to ease them into this because they won't, like understand. And so, the parents are getting introduced to all this stuff. He gets them into an intro film and all this stuff. And then, the big reveal that the parents are told who their kid is and all this stuff, they verify all this stuff. It's just like, oh my God, like OT stuff is real, and we were basically told all this, obviously, like to,
Did he ask for his passport though?
No, he didn't ask for his passport, but he did apparently verify all of his account information. And so they, he bought his parents, the bridge, because that's how much money he had on account. He could buy his parents the whole bridge at Flag. Of course,
bet
the
Flag was
one
pissed, though,
super
because
rich person.
I bet Flag was pissed, though, because he wasn't showing up to pay for the bridge. He was showing
Right.
up to
debit it off his
yeah.
account. But I mean, like, of course, it's the one super rich person with like, you know, $500,000 on account who's like, I'm cashing in, you know.
And of course, this family just goes on a trip because their little child recommends it.
Yep.
Their 7-year-old's like, Mommy, Daddy, I'd like to go to Florida. Like, you know, like, I'm sorry, I have 4 kids. If they're like, I'd like to go to, you know, Costco, I'm like, no, bitch, I don't feel like it today. I'm
But
tired.
here's what's funny. Any of these kids who grew up and were sort of honestly pressured into saying they were past life clears, it's funny. They never seem to remember any of the coursework.
Right.
They never seem to remember any of the stuff they were supposed to have studied. They just have these random memories that they're being told are valid about who they were in a past life. It's never verifiable. None of it ever gets verified, and they don't remember any of the stuff that could be verified. That's why I wanted to talk about this, is because Scientologists, honestly, I don't know if there's a better description of what that you guys would give of what Scientologists are hoping to accomplish with auditing, but a lot of it has to do with being able to remember all of your previous lives in your next lifetime. That's a big part of it. Now, there's also being able to fully, stably exteriorize at will with full perceptions. But if you marry those two things, and then there's, of course, being able to be free of the physical universe. But, you know, let's start with this stuff. Let's start with the easy steps, guys. Let's start with the easy steps. Being able to reincarnate with full recall of your previous lives. It's the one thing Scientologists are hoping to accomplish that you should be able to prove or disprove in your very next lifetime. And yet even the procedure that Scientology has created to verify whether someone achieved this in their past life, they don't even try to verify it because it can't be verified. And anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about the procedure.
How can you verify if you achieve a fake state? Like, literally, like, what is there to verify in the first place?
But that's my point. That's my point. I know Scientologists, there's a lot of Scientologists out there that
literally,
are thinking,
like, what are we verifying? Like, again, it's like, it's all this who have technology, right? And it's like, that was how we, like, in everybody's Scientology's brains got trapped into the technical and this and the CCRD and all these words. But it's like, it starts gamifying this fake state that you are supposed to be achieving. And there's all these like PR rewards that came with it, going back to what Nora was talking about, like, because people did walk around with certain privileges after they had attested these fake states inside of the hotel, right? So the whole thing is gamified by the incentives, is what couldn't be more disgusting. Because again, the more you get implicated, the more of these audits that you do, the more your mental health is at risk, as there's people that are doing all these statuses for you don't even know what in the hell they're doing. Like, 2-week course inside of a hotel is not enough to understand what locking up someone against their will is going to do to them. You know,
no, I think that requires a 4-week course. A 4-week course is required to be able to lock people, to be qualified. I mean, in my personal opinion, if you're going to lock someone up, it should require at least a 4-week course,
At least 4 weeks. I mean, I will say this, as a 14-year-old walking around in that state, okay, a big air quotes, I used to wear my clear bracelet in public high school because my mom demanded that I went to like actual public school. And I thought I was the fucking shit. I mean, at that time I was fast flow, meaning I did, you know, I had my M1 co-audit and my student hat. I was a last lifetime clear. So I walked around public high school like I was like a fucking the shit.
I bet you were great at parties.
Well, first of all, people thought I was wearing a diabetes or medical alert bracelet. So I was hot as fuck. Okay.
That would have been more helpful.
That was like, bringing my milkshake was bringing everybody to the yard with that silver bracelet on, first of all, in the 90s. Second of all, then explaining that you're growing up in a cult, and the Time article came out, super helpful for your dating life. Let me tell you, that was awesome. Let me answer Sarah's question here. Am I able to remember how I came up with these fabrications? Because that's what it is, right? Can we start using accurate verbs like invented and imagined? Sarah, this is very aggressive. You know, you're absolutely right. Yeah. How did I come up with the fabrications at the time? I was a believer. I mean, that's how I came up with them. I absolutely believed everything that I was saying. I mean, it's the same way anyone in a
Well,
super
let's use a
religious
better
or
word for
cult.
that. You were groomed. You weren't a believer. You didn't
Yeah.
believe anything. You didn't have an option, and you were fed a bunch of rhetoric, which you had to read, clay demo, write an essay, sign, attest. It was all
That
of
made her a
those
believer, right?
steps that made you think that you were something. You got a,
Yeah.
certificate at the end of the week, and then you went to a graduation, and then all of a sudden you were something.
I mean, yeah. I mean, and at the time, let's be honest, as a 14-year-old, you know, who was getting extremely love bombed by everybody around me for achieving this astronomical status and being elevated in my own tiny little family unit, wasn't bad. You know, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty great at the time.
Well,
You know,
Aaron, do you know the reason I didn't go clear past life?
Because you were an
Because I
SP.
knew I was gay. I literally knew I was gay, and I'm like, there's no way I could have been past life clear. And Nora got sent back after she ended her little thitty weedy testing clear last lifetime. Oh yeah, you guys, I'm really last lifetime clear. You couldn't have been more thitty weedy. And then, oh yeah, now you're gay.
But I did it again, and then the second
Something's
time,
really wrong with you.
second time
but
I
hold on.
attested on the RPF, they were like, "Oh well, tough tits. She fucking attested again. Can't keep this bitch down." Like,
But Serge, you mean the reason that's why you never tried to originate having achieved clear last lifetime?
Yeah, I mean, realize like when
Is
I
that what you
started
mean?
getting auditing, I was 12, and I
But
was
is that what you
literally
meant?
just starting to, go like into puberty.
Serge has
So
more
you start to
integrity
figure
than
out
I
like,
do.
what
That's
is
what he's
this? How
saying. He
does
Hold
this
on,
work?
Serge. Is that what you meant? It's not that you said you were last lifetime clear and they said you weren't. You're saying this is why you never originated
Oh yeah, correct.
having
No.
achieved clear.
I mean,
last
and that's
life.
how he became prolific, right? Like I went and started doing all the audits, like, and going back to like what the point of Nora said, and I think this is what is very, dangerous to highlight about kids that think that they reincarnated. Because the thing is, like, if you as a kid are able to, like me, go get in session and do all your grades, all your audits and all of that, it's like you're so adulticized. And for me, that, I was having to like deal with that like identity crisis of like, I'm so disgusting because I'm gay. I can't get rid of this. I'm supposed to be a 1-1. I'm supposed to be all these things. So let me go and do this audits to really source it out, and it's like, imagine that all these kids, and I mean, I feel for Nora as well, because all of us went through that extra layer of depravity over
Right.
that very sensitive and vulnerable point of our lives that couldn't have been more confusing for us because everyone in that hotel acted the same way. So I subjected myself to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of torturous hours trying to source something that I could never even source out. So even then, after I had done all the grades, all the sec checks, all the stuff, and I was like, damn, I must be a real SP then. I really must be like.
I tried to get them to attest me to last life clear so many times, and they were not having it. They're like,
But
screw you.
that's what it is, Aaron, because they became less thitty weedy, right? Like, so before in
Yeah.
Scientology, it was very thitty weedy. It was like, oh, attest to this, attest to that, whatever. It's like shit got much more real later.
Yeah.
And then no one could attest to past life clear. They didn't let anybody do it. I mean, they would let you
See, we
originate
were a
it, but
part
they
of
would
that though
always,
too.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
the real people that were real trained is like, no, don't let that person attest to past life clear. Like,
No.
yeah, it's gonna flap. It's literally gonna flap.
All right. Luna's mom says, can you have a panel with these two and Reese where you do a live simulcast with Scientology audits? Well, I don't even know what that means. I think it would be hilarious. Sorry, off topic. A live simulcast. So in other words, a five-way? A five-way?
Oh, now we're
Okay,
getting very spicy.
Love you, Serge. You are always so on point, says Jennifer Strickland.
Oh, thank you, Jennifer.
And Haley Cook, keep fighting the good fight. This never in is all in to take down Scientology. Justice.
Get
for
it,
SP.
Haley.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Nora, did you consider
good.
yourself? Did you think of yourself as was that part of how you thought of yourself as a reincarnated Scientologist? You were one of the people who came back.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was, I mean, once that happened, that was definitely my perspective on it. I mean, I kind of had that perspective as a little kid because, you know, my parents told me that I was very OT since I was a baby. I mean, like, I rolled over at 1 day old, like 2 hours old. I said, yeah, to my
Did you float
mom.
in an ice cube too? Was that ever part of your
Yeah.
childhood? The
I
ice
mean, no,
cube?
like I did unusual things as a baby.
Were you a
You
being
know,
newly arrived on Earth?
yes,
Like,
I am
so you were a
all.
floater. You were bobbing around in the sea for a while in an ice
But
cube
see,
like Reese?
this is my problem. I always, whenever I got those questions, you know, like these questions, the space opera questions, you know, I never knew what the right answer to those were, but I always wanted to do what seemed to be the most interesting. So, like, I knew I was always answering those things wrong. You know, like I wanted to be old and new at the same time, but also like the smartest and best, but maybe something wild. So I couldn't be all the things. So it's hard to pick, you know,
So, but let me ask
what's
you
the
this: like, you
coolest.
said you came up with two different names for who you
Yeah.
had been in your previous
Oh,
life.
sure.
Why the two different names?
Well, the first time I did it when I was 14, I felt a lot of pressure, and I was also under a lot of pressure to be, at the time, very feminine, very girly. And it was like this whole,
But why the two?
it's
Why the
what,
two different names? Why the two different
well,
names?
be, you know, because there was a whole struggle going on in my mind, gay wise, sexuality wise. I was at the cusp of puberty at 14. I didn't actually hit puberty till 14 and a half, till after I tested clear. I was a late bloomer on many things, as everyone knows. But so when I came up with the first name, my last life, I was a woman. And then the second name, I was a man when I was on the RPF, which then made more sense to everybody. Like, oh, well, this bitch was a man, so that's why she's the gay.
So
Right. So
let me ask
then
you this though:
everything
like,
made more
was
sense.
there ever any part of you that was that tried to go and find out if the name that you had come up with had been a real person?
I told my dad, he was a PI. He looked into it. He was like, I couldn't find anything about that person. So he knew my
Doesn't
You
dad,
find
who
out
was an
something about your
OT
childhood
and a
delusion.
PI
I
and
mean,
everything. He knew it was
honestly,
a
the fact
lie.
that people wasted time, like, let me really find out your my
Oh, my
childhood
dad totally tried to
delusion
find
of
out.
being this name, like random. Did you pull that
Yeah.
name out of your ass? Nora?
Oh, 100%. I 100%. But like I
See, but if someone
visualized it.
wanted to
But
be
I
really, really smart
visualized
about it,
it.
if someone wanted to be really smart about it, they would just go do a little bit of research to find the name of a Scientologist who
Well, heck,
died.
now you could do that with Google and like all these other fucking things. This was 1989. Was I going to go to the library and a card catalog
Oh no,
index
no,
the
no, no. That
fucking
was the
shit?
first one.
Like,
I'm talking about the second one.
I was
Talking
on
about the
the
second one.
RPF. What research was I going to do?
Oh, I don't know. You'd been in Scientology for a long time. Then I figured you just know someone. I figured just be
Who
like, oh yeah, let me come up with the name of that
who
person who
died in
died.
1976?
I guess. I don't know.
How many people would I know that died? I mean, I could talk. There was some people on the RPF that were old and shit. I could have been like, yeah, remember those guys from the set? Tell me about those guys who died.
That's so weird. Oh,
Tell me stories about all the dead people.
Yeah. Okay. Just my opinion says High SP is off topic, but have you ever seen or reacted to Billy on the Street Escape from Scientology with Rachel Dratch? Yeah, that's some really, really funny stuff, actually.
I have not reacted to it. I should, but I love Rachel Dratch and I love Billy on the Street.
Luna's mom, watch folks that are in front of the Hollywood Recruiting Center and comment and give questions to Ask Staff. Yes. Therapeutist Mel. Question, Serge. Did you question the past life clears when you were an auditor, or did you not think much about it?
No, I didn't think much about it, right? Because again, in having grown in this cult and having our entire reality warped into these things being actually a thing, like, past lives seemed like, oh yeah, that must definitely, and I think that's what gave Scientology this kind of like false sense of legitimacy. It's like, because past lives is something that no one could really deny, and then L. Ron Hubbard was very smart to not let anyone talk about their sessions, because he knew the minute people would start talking, everything would fall apart, right? So it was that compartmentalization of like, oh yeah, your past lives, but you can only speak to them, to your auditor. And I think that added like this sense of like validity to this case you were building. You're always building a case on yourself, because that's really what Scientology is selling you. Build a case against yourself, and the people that are going to data mine that out of you will use all the information that we data mine to screw your life and to gaslight and manipulate you. As much as you're going to say that you love it and it's so great and it's so wonderful, but it's like we weren't being helped or made more aware by being tortured.
Yes, totally. Well, this has been a fun chat. I still want to have more. I want to have a chat. I have to find someone out there, former Scientologist, who was an actual CCRD delivery auditor and did a whole bunch of them, because I want to get some details on how much they were pressured to get names and why they were told the names were important if they weren't going to try to verify the names. Who cares about the name if you're not going to verify it? I don't know. I don't know why this has never occurred to me before.
But again, what you're thinking about though, Aaron, is you would have to go pre-1993, because after 1993 they really stopped doing that, because even Iridited, that attested past life, even she was sent back to do all the grades and to not attest and to reattest, because they really kind of like got rid of that. They just were like, oh no, you know what, no one's going to be past life clear anymore. And
I get what you're saying, that CCRDs since then aren't going to worry about getting a name because it's present life stuff.
Correct. Because now it's just like they have to do. Yeah.
And isn't it incredible? It's something I want to shove Scientologists' face in, is the fact that one of the things you're supposed to get from doing this whole bridge is the ability to retain everything you did in your previous life. Yeah. And yet Miscavige has made it against the rules to say that you went clear in a past life. That doesn't count anymore. And I don't know how a Scientologist makes sense of that. That's all.
Well, remember when we came home and we were delivering, the golden age of tech, and we looked dead into the eyes of people who had been trained by L. Ron Hubbard on the ship to Class 8 auditor, who at the time were the most powerful auditors on the planet outside of Flag, okay, who were not Class 12, but they were the most powerful set of auditors on the planet. And we said, you're out tech, and you don't know the technology of Scientology, and only we know the technology of Scientology because we're perfect and you're not. So you're going to go back to the beginning of your training and start over, even though you've been trained longer than I've been alive. Tough tits. And we had the brass balls to do that to people who had been delivering Scientology for bumpity bump years with no qualms. Right? Because
Scientology is a clique. You're always in a clique. It's always a clique. It's always like we're the latest trained, and the people that did it before, idiots and stupid, and you weren't trained by RTC and we were. And it's all this like narcissistic AF power dynamic derangement that goes on. I mean, we would know, like you said it, I mean, we were terrible as teenagers. We would just literally spit on adults' faces.
We just walked in there like, hey,
literally, you were literally spitting in people's faces. What are you doing?
You'll confront the evil up. I mean, literally, Aaron, like those adults,
confront this, you son of a bitch.
Boom.
Well, remember, as supervisors, we were told put the fear of God in them. Right. So it was like you had to be this. Literally gonna put the fear of God. It's like, I mean,
we didn't care. I mean, it's the same thing with the clear thing. It's the same thing with the clear thing or any status,
right? I mean, it's
they're telling OT8s to do the objectives again.
I'll role play inspecting a check sheet for all of you. Let's pretend I'm a Scientology supervisor.
Do it.
Okay. You haven't been making your target for the last 3 days. What have you been doing not making your target? Do you know you're literally holding up the entire outer trainee body with you being off target for 3 days? How can this be? How can you be this out ethics? You are going to go to ethics, and we're going to put you on the meter, and we better find out what crimes you're hiding, because you know what? If you're still masturbating, that's going to come up. That's going to come up. And if you're still doing it, you're continuing PT overs. And that means you are suppressive because you don't make any ethics change. So HCO, ethics MAA, come here. Take him right now. Go get him interrogated. Let's go. Out of the courtroom.
And if you don't make your
ethics
target
in.
tonight, I'm going to spit in your face.
Literally. I mean,
I am
it's
this
like
close to spitting right in your face.
and again, Aaron, it's like, oh, you're so good. You're such a great supervisor. Like, oh, look at him putting.
Look at his
ethics
pink
in.
sheets. Look at all those pink sheets.
Look
Just
at all-
handing them out like Oprah.
Literally, I still have the pink sheets here. But
We're
yeah,
supposed to be clearing the planet. Good
We're
luck
clearing the planet,
with my
goddammit.
spit all over your face.
yeah. So
Oh, God.
we don't recommend it for anyone. You guys just drop
Somebody
out.
Somebody said you're terrifying, Serge. I was like, yeah, get that.
Well,
that
you
little
guys,
tidbit
because
that
I was
Serge
trained by
did,
the
guys,
best. You should see the RTC
that
rep.
was-
You should see
that
who
was
trained us.
this much.
If you guys are
Hey,
scared
if you think
of
he's
us,
terrifying
you should see who
now, you
trained
should have
us.
seen him when he was still in the closet as a Sea Org member.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
hardcore terrifying because he had a big chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Aaron
Surge
Straight
is-
Surge was
hasn't left
terrifying.
and is never gonna leave.
Yeah.
Unlucky
I know.
for all of y'all. It's here to
Surge
stay.
This is diet Surge, guys.
Surge said, please change your channel to literally Surge.
Literally
You know
Surge.
what? That's not a bad idea.
That's actually fabulous. That's actually
I like
fabulous.
that. I like that.
I
I
love
think I'm gonna think about that because I was thinking like literally Surge. Yes, I think that really goes.
Oh, Lewis says Tim
my
Burke
God.
was a spitter when he ran the closet.
Facts.
Oh,
Fact.
yeah.
Tim.
Thank you,
I
Louis.
remember
Exactly.
Tim.
I'm glad you came up with that too. Yep.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Well, let's call it a wrap for today. This has been a lot of fun. Reminder, if you're not already subscribed to Nora on YouTube, you can find her at Oh No Nora. And Serge, at least for now, is Serge Del Mar. Coming soon, it might be literally Serge.
Literally Surge.
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,